The rain tapped against the porch light as I stood there with nothing but a worn suitcase at my feet. Behind me, the heavy oak door clicked shut, the lock sliding into place like a final verdict. My daughter-in-law's words still rang in my ears, sharp and cold. "You do not live here anymore. This house is mine now. Go find somewhere else to haunt." I did not argue. At 67, I had learned that silence sometimes carried more power than the loudest protest. I stood tall, the drizzle soaking into my coat, and simply looked up at the home my son and I had once built together. Every stone, every beam had been chosen with care. Now it belonged to someone who saw it as nothing more than a trophy. What she did not know was that my son never played life like a simple game. Andrew loved puzzles. He designed systems that protected themselves, strategies that looked quiet until they revealed their brilliance. As the rain ran down my face, I thought of his words to me on one late evening. "Trust the system I built, Mom." That night, I realized his final plan was just beginning. My name is Evelyn Carter, and for most of my life, I was just a school librarian in Maple Ridge, Washington. I never thought of myself as remarkable. I spent 35 years shelving books, helping children find their voices in stories, and keeping order in the quiet hum of the library. My life was steady, if modest, until my son Andrew came along and filled it with dreams larger than our small world could hold. Andrew was only 12 when he started tinkering with old computers in our basement. While other boys were outside with baseballs, he was stacking parts, writing lines of code, and asking me for extension cords. I brewed coffee to keep myself awake and sat beside him, labeling boxes of cables like they were library books. I did not understand everything he built, but I understood him. His curiosity was endless. By the time he was 20, he had launched a tiny startup with nothing but determination and 2 refurbished servers. I watched him pace in our kitchen, rehearsing investor pitches, while I pressed his shirts and reminded him to eat. He told me once, "Mom, every great system starts with trust," and I trusted him completely. Every late night, every risk, every dollar I saved, it all went into helping Andrew build his future. The morning after Andrew's funeral, the silence inside the house was unbearable. It was not the gentle hush of mourning, but a brittle, sharp quiet, the kind that feels ready to break with one wrong move. I sat in the living room, my hands folded in my lap, staring at the armchair where Andrew used to read late into the night. Everywhere I looked, I could still see him in the sunlight on the oak floorboards we had polished together, in the faint hum of the servers he had set up downstairs. Then I heard the click of heels on the staircase. Bianca appeared, not in black or in anything that suggested loss, but in a cream-colored business suit. Her hair was perfect, her makeup sharp. She did not pause to acknowledge me. Instead, she lifted her phone, her voice crisp and controlled. "Yes, move up the timeline. We need to liquidate the secondary assets by the end of the quarter." Her perfume lingered as she passed me, sweet but suffocating. For a moment, I felt less like Andrew's mother and more like a piece of outdated furniture she had yet to remove. That was when I understood the storm was only beginning. My grief was still raw, but Bianca's ambition was already in full bloom. 2 days later, I sat across from Bianca in the polished mahogany conference room of Martin Whitaker, Andrew's longtime attorney. The walls smelled of leather and old paper, lined with shelves that reminded me of my own library back at school. Martin had known Andrew since his college days. He cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and began to read the will. The legal words felt heavy and endless, but the meaning was simple enough. Everything Andrew's controlling shares in his company, worth more than $50 million, his investments, his cars, his artwork, his accounts, and even the house itself was left to Bianca Reed Carter. My name appeared only once, in a single sterile line to my mother, Evelyn Carter. "I leave my deepest gratitude for her guidance and love." The words cut sharper than any knife. I never cared about the money, but hearing my life reduced to a thank you note was like being erased. I looked across the table at Bianca. She sat upright, her hands folded neatly, her expression cool. For just a moment, the corner of her lips curved in a smile, small but triumphant. I thought back to Andrew hunched over our kitchen table with his first business plan, my life savings pushed across to him in a personal check. "It's not a risk," I had told him. "It's an investment in you." Sitting in that office, I felt the weight of that trust. I wondered if my son had left more than what we had just heard. When we returned to the house, the thin veil of civility disappeared. Bianca no longer moved like a grieving widow. She walked through the rooms like an inspector preparing for demolition. Her eyes swept over the family photographs on the walls, Andrew as a boy, fishing trips with me, even a faded portrait of his father. All of this has to go, she said flatly. We need a clean, modern aesthetic. She paused at the shelves in Andrew's library, running a finger across the spines of his beloved science fiction novels. First editions, gifts from birthdays, books he had annotated through college. These can be sold, she declared. They might fetch something. Her phone rang and she answered on speaker, her voice ringing across the room. Yes, it's all confirmed, 55 million, not including the property. I have complete control now. She looked directly at me as she said those words, a challenge in her eyes. 2 days later she arrived with 2 men built like moving trucks. She pointed to the library. This room is depressing. All this dark wood and paper junk. Clear it out by tomorrow. The gym equipment is coming Friday. I set down the book one was holding and faced her calmly. Bianca, this isn't junk. This was Andrew's sanctuary. Her response was a bitter laugh. Memories do not pay bills, Evelyn. You're not welcome here anymore. Go find a dumpster to haunt. The men guided me toward the door, my suitcase already waiting outside on the lawn. The lock clicked behind me. Just like that, I was erased from my own son's home. I walked away from the house without looking back, the rain soaking into my coat. A taxi carried me out past the suburbs where polished neighborhoods gave way to dim strip malls and industrial yards. I asked the driver to drop me at the Northview Motel, a place I remembered from years ago, quiet and anonymous. The room smelled faintly of stale smoke and cleaning solution. A brown bedspread stretched across a sagging mattress, and the hum of the ice machine outside was the only sound. I set my suitcase on the rack and sat down heavily. For the first time in days, I was truly alone. The silence gave me space to think. Bianca's cruelty had been swift, but Andrew had never been careless. He built firewalls and backups for everything. Could it really be that in his personal life he had left nothing? The idea did not sit right. I remembered the last serious conversation we had in the library just a month before he fell ill. He had looked up from his laptop, eyes tired but steady. If something ever happens to me, Mom, he said, trust the system I built. At the time, I thought he meant the company. Now, sitting in that dim motel room, I began to suspect he meant something far larger. I picked up the motel's pen and scrawled 2 words on the back of a receipt, call Whitaker. The next evening, after pacing the threadbare carpet until my legs ached, I finally reached for the phone. My fingers hesitated over Martin Whitaker's number. Was I calling as a grieving mother, or as someone ready to fight back? I pressed the button and listened to the ring. Evelyn, he answered, his voice carrying both relief and concern. I was about to call you. Those words sent a shiver through me. He had been waiting. He lowered his tone. I could not tell you this until certain conditions were met. Now they have been. I listened as he explained. Andrew's will, the one Bianca had heard, was only the first layer. The real plan contained a contingency clause. For 30 days, Bianca had been entrusted with a fiduciary duty, a legal obligation to protect both the family's welfare and the Carter legacy. Expelling me from the home, dismissing me like trash, was a direct violation. That single act triggered the next stage. Martin paused, letting the silence settle. Your son anticipated this. He wanted to give her a chance, but he also prepared for the likelihood of her greed. By forcing you out, she fulfilled the very condition that allows me to open the sealed documents. I gripped the receiver tighter, my heart steadying for the first time since the funeral. Andrew had not left me erased. He had left me a shield. And now, Martin said, it was time to follow Andrew's true instructions. Martin must have heard the hesitation in my voice, because he slowed down to explain. Evelyn, fiduciary duty sounds like a heavy phrase, but it's really simple. Think of it this way. If you ask a neighbor to watch your dog while you are away, they have one job, to care for that dog as if it were their own. They cannot sell the leash, neglect the food, or lock the poor thing outside. That would be a betrayal of trust. I nodded, even though he could not see me. A librarian by trade, I had always loved examples that made complex things clear. In Andrew's will, Martin continued, the dog is the Carter family legacy. That means the people, the home, the history. For 30 days, Bianca was entrusted to protect all of it, to prove herself as a worthy steward. It was her test. I closed my eyes, the truth dawning in slow waves. She had not only failed, she had done so dramatically, by throwing me out. So what happens now? I whispered. Now, Martin said firmly, the breach gives me legal authority to activate Andrew's sealed codicil. The next steps will not be loud or dramatic. They will be quiet, procedural, and precise. But they will change everything. For the first time, I began to feel a cautious hope. Martin laid out the plan with the calm precision of someone who had rehearsed it many times. "The first step," he said, "is to create space. We do that through procedural holds." He explained that he would file routine requests, asset valuations, probate filings, tax assessments, and temporary injunctions. None of it would look unusual. On paper, it was simply the slow machinery of estate law. In practice, it would build an invisible wall around the $55 million Bianca thought she controlled. "She will see the money," Martin said, "but she will not be able to touch it. Imagine a banquet table behind a glass wall. She can press her face against it, but she cannot take a single bite." My role, he reminded me, was even harder. You must disappear. No visits to friends, no phone calls. She must believe she has succeeded in erasing you. That false confidence will make her reckless. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, the weak lamp casting a pale circle of light. Just days ago, this room had felt like a prison of humiliation. Now, I realized it was a command center. Silence and patience would be my weapons. Andrew's system had been activated, and my task was simply to trust it. While I kept to the shadows of the Northview Motel, Bianca stepped fully into the spotlight. Martin's investigator later told me how she moved through the city in a blur of consumption, as if money were oxygen, and she had been starved for years. Her first stop was the boutiques downtown. She did not browse or hesitate. She pointed at handbags with 5-figure price tags, watches that cost more than my first house, and racks of designer dresses she would likely never wear twice. Store clerks described her not as a shopper but as a conqueror claiming tribute. From there she visited a luxury car showroom. The blood-red sports car with doors that lifted like wings caught her eye. She placed a large, non-refundable deposit with the flick of a card. When asked about the balance, she laughed lightly. "As soon as the estate paperwork clears," she said. Back at the house, she walked with a well-known interior designer, issuing commands as if she were a monarch. The oak floors were to be ripped out for white marble, the furniture replaced with chrome and glass. Standing in Andrew's library, she wrinkled her nose. "This is a morgue," she said. "Got it." She was rewriting her life in fast, sweeping strokes, convinced her kingdom would never crumble. The first cracks in Bianca's empire appeared quietly. She had gone to a chic cafe one morning, dressed in a new designer coat, eager to be seen as the woman of wealth she believed herself to be. After ordering an elaborate Latin pastry, she handed over her sleek black card, the one tied directly to Andrew's estate. The barista swiped it once, declined. He tried again, declined. Bianca's laugh was sharp and brittle. "That's impossible," she said, her voice a little too loud. She pulled out a second card. Declined as well. Flustered, she paid with cash and stormed outside, dialing the bank on her phone. The banker's tone was polite, almost soothing. "Yes, Mrs. Carter, I see the issue. A temporary procedural hold has been placed on all estate accounts. Standard practice during probate." When she returned home, the designer called with irritation. His demolition crew had been turned away by a legal injunction. "We are billing by the hour, Bianca. What is happening?" That same afternoon, the car dealer left a message. Her 72-hour window to complete payment had expired. The red sports car was gone, the deposit forfeited. Each door she pushed against held firm. One by one, the walls of Andrew's quiet system were closing around her. 5 days later, Martin called me at the motel. "It's time," he said simply. His voice carried a note of finality. I arrived at his office wearing my best navy suit, the one Andrew had chosen for me at his wedding. In the waiting room, I sat with a book open in my lap. My hands were steady. For the first time since the funeral, I felt no fear. The door opened and Bianca stepped inside. Her once polished appearance was frayed. Wrinkled clothes, tired eyes, and a faint tremor in her hands betrayed the weight of her unraveling world. She froze when she saw me. Confusion, shock, and then raw fear rippled across her face. In the conference room, Martin began without ceremony. He slid a copy of the original will across the table, pointing to the clause Bianca had ignored. "For 30 days you were bound to uphold the welfare of the Carter family," he said. "Instead, you expelled Evelyn, your husband's mother, from her home." Her mouth opened, but no defense came. Then Martin reached for a sealed cream envelope, pressed with Andrew's signet. He broke the wax, unfolded a single sheet, and began to read. "All assets without exception, shares, accounts, and property are to be transferred into the Andrew Carter Legacy Trust. The sole trustee and administrator will be my mother, Evelyn Carter. The mission of this trust is to fund technology education for underprivileged students a cause I held dear. Martin paused before the final line. To my wife, Bianca Reed Carter, the trust will provide a monthly stipend of $2,000, contingent upon her maintaining full-time employment and residing in the guest cottage. Bianca's face drained of color. The fortune she flaunted was gone. What remained was consequence written by Andrew's own hand. 6 months later, the silence of the motel was only a memory. My days were filled with voices, laughter, and the steady hum of computers. The Andrew Carter Tech Scholars Foundation had opened its doors in the very library Bianca once wanted to gut. The oak shelves still lined the walls, but now they shared space with bright whiteboards covered in equations and plans. Students leaned over laptops, their eyes alight with discovery. I often walked the rows quietly, pausing to straighten a stack of papers or place a new book on the shelf. On Andrew's old desk sat a framed photo of him, taken on a hiking trip. He was smiling into the sun, alive with promise. That photo reminded me daily that his dream had not ended with his life. It was living here, in these eager young minds. As for Bianca, I heard she now worked at a downtown cafe. She wore a plain apron, served coffee to strangers, and went home tired each night. She was not starving, not suffering, just living a life of ordinary responsibility. The contrast was sharp. Andrew's true legacy had flourished while her illusions had dissolved. Justice had arrived not with fury, but with patience and purpose. Looking back, I see now that patience is not weakness. It is a form of strength, steady and deliberate. Andrew knew that true character reveals itself when no one is watching, and he built a plan that proved it. Bianca's choices exposed her, not my anger or my words. The real inheritance was never the money. It was the values my son left behind, the belief that knowledge should be shared, that opportunity should be open to all, and that integrity matters more than wealth. Every scholarship we grant is proof that his vision lives on. For those listening, let this be a reminder. If you are ever in charge of family assets, put your intentions in writing. Include safeguards so that greed cannot erase what matters most. Protect your people, not just your property. My son's system worked because it combined love with foresight. He trusted me to finish the work, and I will honor that trust for as long as I live. If this story has touched you, if you believe that quiet strength can outlast arrogance, I ask you to like this video, share it with someone who may need encouragement, and tell me where you are watching from. Your voices remind me that no story is ever truly finished.